There are traits, though, when it comes to the most successful clients. When I say the most successful, I'm talking about not just physical results, but I'm talking about internal results, and I'm talking about the people who keep their results.
Whenever you are presented with a situation in which you're ready to throw in the towel, literally what that is, it's a battle between the new identity and the old identity. And whenever you push through that, and it's going to be really hard, that's one more victory against the old identity. And all it takes is enough, victories, and eventually you win the war.
Anytime we're expanding, anytime we are at a crossroads and we are trying to make the better decision that goes against the old self, the mind can only measure what we will lose. It cannot measure what we'll gain.
For the people that are maybe not working with a coach or something like that, how do they do that themselves? Because that's tricky.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. And this is a very cool episode because I actually have Mr. Grant Kasinik.
Hello.
Quite literally, not metaphorically, but in the actual house. So, guys, if you have been around for a while, you've heard many episodes with Grant. Grant has been working with me in a coaching capacity for many, many years now, and found out we have been friends for 14 years now.
14 as of, I think, 2 days ago.
Facebook. I feel like, though,
now, granted,
what year would that have been?
For a long
what year would that have been? 14 years ago.
2010, I guess.
Okay. I don't remember anything from 2010. But it was, I literally saw yesterday, the time of recording this, the Facebook time hop of celebrate your friendship with Grant for 14 years. I'm like, wow.
See, I got another one too, where it was like, you were teaching me something Taekwondo related.
Wow.
And that was like 16 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. It's weird. Grant and I knew each other before we knew each other because back when I was a kid in martial arts, so was Grant. We were in the same classes, but we never really connected. It's just fucking a whirlwind of how life works sometimes.
I know, it really is.
But anyway, in today's episode, the reason I wanted to get Grant on here is because between the two of us, Grant and I have so many actual and literal years of coaching people. And when you have the amount of reps of people that we've worked with and the amount of years under our belt that we have, we can make really big, we got to be careful with this blanket statements around, hey, the most successful people do this. The most struggling people do this. You know what I mean? It's because of its years of experience speaking. So one of the things that I wanted to do, and people were actually asking about it, is to do a podcast basically going over traits of the most successful clients. Because I know for me, I've been coaching for well over a decade. I don't know how, I
mean, I guess it's been 6 or 7 years.
Right. But then Grant, you have this crazy sciencey background that I'll never have. And then even before I was coaching professionally, I was still doing levels of coaching when I was like a kid. So, but at the end of the day, this is about getting you guys not just the results, but the information that you can apply to your situation. This is whether you are one of our clients listening, whether you are on the fence about applying for coaching, or you're working with another coach, because I'm not going to be on here saying we're the only good ones out in the space. But there are traits, though, when it comes to the most successful clients. When I say the most successful, I'm talking about not just physical results, but I'm talking about internal results, and I'm talking about the people who keep their results. We don't play the game of let's get you results and then after we leave, you get fat or whatever. So we're talking about as a whole, the traits of the individuals that get the best results possible. Whether you want to say they maximized coaching or whatever you want to call it, but that's what we're going to get into. So,
and that's also kind of an interesting thing. What would you actually say, looking at that, the people that have graduated and have had, years of success, what does that actually look like? Because, I would say they, as cheesy as it might sound, kind of just become a new person. Is that kind of how you would describe that? Or?
It is exactly that. It's who they are now. Yeah. I was talking with a friend of mine, is on the other end. I have a friend of mine who, she was an alcoholic and she struggled a lot, with drugs and alcohol in her younger years, ended up going through AA and all these things. We actually talked about it on the show. Well, it's Beth Faracco, for those that, if you guys want to go watch that episode. But there's one issue I have with AA's procedure is they reinforce the old identity of I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic. Right. And Beth and I talked about that. And she goes, well, I'm not anymore. And I go, that's it, is that's not part of who you are anymore. And I think the longer we identify with the problem, the longer we're going to struggle. It's like people take on that identity of their diagnoses, and then all of a sudden they die at a certain age, or the physiological effects happen, but then it turns out they had the wrong diagnosis.
Right.
So that we got to be careful with that. So I think the people who are the most successful with this stuff, it's the same way. It's who they are now. Because the goal is not to have to think about this stuff all the time, right? I was talking with, actually, you worked with her exclusively for however long it was Stephanie. And I was doing an interview with Stephanie in the Facebook group, and I said, Stephanie, you've been so successful. It's been like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years since you graduated the program, and you're still crushing it. I go, I want to talk about like how you've still been successful. And she said to me, Jared, I don't know what to talk about because this is just what I do. It's just who I am now. I go, that's it. Right. She goes, oh, okay, let's do it. But it was one of those things, is these things that we struggle with become character traits and personality traits, but then neuroscience shows us that our personality creates our personal reality.
Right.
So I think you're right, it's just these things just become part of who you are now.
Yeah. And that's definitely something that it's very easy to kind of lose sight. And that's why I think it's really important to, have something that kind of that you can look back to kind of remind yourself of where you were. Because I think the example that I always like to give with that, it's like, if you have a dog, or I'm sure the same applies with kids and whatnot, but, every single day they're growing, but because you see that every single day, you don't really recognize it. You have a dog that's a puppy, and then you blink and it's a big dog. But to you never saw any of that growth. It's just your dog just moving along, and suddenly they're a new dog, so to speak.
Yeah, I actually did a post on this on TikTok the other day. It was I don't know who originally came up with it, but I was full transparency, I was going to the bathroom and I go, we're out of toilet paper already. I don't remember seeing the toilet paper get low. And I go, oh, I got to do an object lesson. So then I talked about that. Like when you take 3 squares off the toilet paper roll to go to do the business, it got smaller. You never noticed it. And then we've all had that case where we just changed the toilet paper roll, especially if y'all have kids and they're just going crazy. You go, I thought I just changed that.
Right. It's
because the things are happening and you don't see it. It's like every time you're reading, like I always use the book analogies where the goal is to finish the book, the 700-page book, but 1 page in, you feel like you haven't made progress. But every day you read a page, you don't feel like anything's happening, but one day you actually finish the book. But the problem is, in weight loss, if you deny, well, I'm not making progress, I should be further ahead, this sucks, I can't believe I'm still in this.
Right.
Well, if you'll deny 1 page, you'll deny the whole book. And then you'll get to the end and go, wow, this isn't what I thought it would be. Because your mindset going into it and your belief systems is causing all the problems.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's kind of like a beautiful tie-in where, I would say that probably one of the traits that a very successful person has, it's the ability to be able to recognize that you are taking, 1 metaphorical sheet off the toilet paper every single day and just, being able to really appreciate that. Now, tactically, how do you do that?
It's a choice. You have to, like, there's I think it's in Atomic Habits. It's back here somewhere. James Clear's book, where I think it was the Chinese railway system. They did this thing where they found if they did this concept of pointing and calling, their accidents dropped by like 90%. Some like ungodly size margin. Like the amount of injuries and errors that happened diminished by 90% by doing what they call pointing and calling, is going door shutting, or you're in the doorway, or it's so simple. But here is, we are naturally, especially if someone trying to go through this game, we're naturally cynical. We naturally will see have progress happen. We'll deny it, and we'll feel bad about ourselves. These kind of things, and we'll deny by proxy, just by the nature of who we are for most people. So I think we have to have a system to literally write out, map out, point and call what we're doing that's working. Because if you don't do that, the cynical mind, whatever you want to call it, the cynical mind, the lizard brain, the old self, the ego, the whatever starts to sink in. And if we will deny a little bit of progress, we'll deny a lot of progress. Right. Because the only way a lot of progress is made is of micro progress. So.
Yep, the pyramids were not built overnight.
One giant ass brick at a time.
One big old brick at a time.
Yeah. I still, not to go down this rabbit hole, but I still have so much I want to ask about all of that.
Right.
Like there's so many questions I have. But
how did they get there?
Yeah, for another time. So, okay, Grant, so for you, I guess we'll just kind of trade on some of these. What's another one of a trait of the most successful, whether like something that we were talking about earlier, like that we literally wrote a bunch of this on a board that's off camera, whether it's something on the board or different. For you, what's one of the big ones?
I mean, I would say that this one could almost just, It's willing to do the work, and I would say that applies to almost everything. And that's a tricky one because that's probably the most obvious one, and it's probably also the hardest one to actually do. It's to put in the work, and a lot of that is recognizing, where you're struggling and being able to, recognize that and say, hey, you know what, this is where I really need to put a lot of my emphasis. I forget who it was that said that, but actually, maybe it was you. But the thing that you are avoiding the most right now is probably the thing that is going to help you the most.
Oh, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I would love to take credit for that. But no, I agree with you. It's one of those things where like the magic is doing. It's not just we call it doing the boring work. It's literally one of our coaching core values is we do the boring work. But it's not just doing the boring work. It is, I would argue, a pursuit of relentless execution, unwavering, non-negotiably, unapologetically doing the boring work.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just enough to say, let's do the thing you should do and move on. But I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
So like the way that when I hear that, when I think, I keep going back to unapologetically, but when I say relentlessly doing the work, that means in spite of convenience. That means in spite of if you feel like it. That means in spite of whatever.
Yeah, because it's doing it no matter what.
Right. And that's not to say someone isn't, we have to be perfect or anything like that, but like let's compare it to, let's not compare it to weight loss. Okay, what about making money, going to work? Like you're 9 to 5. Whereas like, well, I don't feel like it. And?
Right.
You have bills? Cool. Do you want to go homeless? No? Okay, then you got to go to work.
Yeah.
Right? We've all had experiences going to work sick. We've all had experiences of going to work when you had the fight with your partner. We've all had the experience of going to work with whatever. Same thing with paying your bills. Same thing with brushing our teeth. And we all get it.
Yeah. And I would definitely say for a lot of people too, I think that some of the hesitation to just do the thing, it's due to a lack of confidence. And I think being able to remind you. So one of the things that I love to have people do is look at different frameworks in your life in which you are already kind of succeeding in. So like, for example, you might not want to go to work, but you go to work anyway. You might not want to brush your teeth, but you brush your teeth anyway. You might not want to pay a bill, but you pay the bill anyway. And I think that once we can recognize that we do this stuff every single day of our lives, we are able to do the thing. We are able to do the boring work over and over and over with everything. And I think that once you understand that you've got all of this, to quote Hermosi, right? You've got an undeniable stack of proof in front of you, then I think that's much easier to start on something else because you know that you do this with so many other things.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, but I think there's part of it where there's the deep side and then there's like the more shallow side. Whereas people say, well, how do I do the work? Well, there's the deep side where we get into like telling clients to write like the hell list. Like, well, on paper, what's going to happen if you don't do this? And then if you don't do it, you're choosing that. It's why we all brush our teeth when we don't want to, is because we know cavities hurt, bad breath sucks. Someone won't want to be romantic with us, whatever it may be. But there's also, it comes to a point where I'm going to sound like a dick. You're not helpless, right? Like I'm trying to think of how to say this without sounding like a complete asshole. There's a level of this where like stop giving up your personal power and stop acting helpless. Like if someone says, I can't choose between the steak or the chicken at the restaurant, how do I pick? You just do. Like, yeah, I could probably build a 5-step framework to picking steak or chicken. Like list down the pros of the chicken, but just pick. How do I do that? You just do it. But how do I just do it? You have free will. Do the thing. Just do it.
Yeah.
Now the nuance comes, let's say I'm saying, hey, I need you to go to the gym 3 days a week. And you're like, oh, I have a wife and kids and work and school. Okay, we might have to have some strategy around that.
Right.
Or whatever the case is to make sure the approach is the right fit. But there's a level of this where in the world of doing the work it solves almost every issue. But for some reason, for a lot of people, there's that blockage of like, well, I know I should do it, but I just don't.
Yeah.
Well, so like, is it because we aren't aware of what is going to happen if we don't? Or is it that you're fully aware and you don't care? And if that's the case, that's okay too. Like we're not telling anyone to have their goals specifically. But at the end of the day, I had one of my first mentors. He says, his response is when someone says, I know what to do, I don't do it. He goes, okay, so you don't either actually know or you don't care. He goes, well, I know. I go, well, do you then? Because if you knew better, you'd do better. And you're not doing better. So do you actually know? Well, yeah. Okay, well, then you don't give a shit enough. Otherwise you would. And it's like,
Now, one thing that I'm actually really curious to hear your thoughts on this, is there a way to teach people to give a shit?
No. Absolutely not. I've said this for years, is the only thing in a coaching capacity I cannot do for someone is teach desire.
Yeah, it's to give them that desire. I would agree with that fully.
Otherwise, where's free will?
Right.
If I can make you want something, like that actually, to be honest, like people say, Jared, I'll be interviewed on like podcasts and they'll say, Jared, what's the best and worst part of coaching for you? Like every like a job that has a high levels of purpose also has like it has both sides. Is when I want the goal for someone more than they do. Yes. It's the hardest thing ever. And I thought I muted my computer. But it's the hardest part. I'm sure you could allude to that, is when you want the goal more than the other person does.
And that's always hard. And I think that there are probably different ways. So like if, for example, there is something and you feel like you don't have that desire yet, sometimes what you can do is basically like shift, for example, why you want it in the first place. So like case in point, maybe, for example, someone is getting into this game because they think that, whenever they lose the weight or change the mindset or what have you, we'll just stay with weight. Whenever you lose the weight, you're going to feel a certain way. And maybe that's not a big enough reason for you to continue on, because it's like, well, I'm going to feel this way, but I've got to do all these things. And I don't know if I want to do that. So then find another, goal and see if maybe you desire that one more. So I think that you can, to an extent, almost trial and error this. Because I guarantee you every single person has that reason. I think everyone is going to be able to find that desire. And I think a lot of it's just trial and error, unfortunately.
Well, or
fortunately. I mean, I guess I
sure.
shouldn't say unfortunately.
But the thing is, too, is I've seen it happen where no one gave a shit till their rock bottom got real bad.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate truth is, and if you were listening to this, maybe reflect on this, is maybe you have to get in a really much worse position. Because like Tony Robbins says it best, when the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of change, that's when we do shit. Right. Like, for example, like if I'm happy with my house, why would I go house shopping?
Right.
But if like all of a sudden I lived in actually, case in point, we just bought my wife a new vehicle. It's because her transmission was going out on her old one. She couldn't get the car above 60 miles an hour. She was having to pull over on the way home from work or on the day-to-day because her car would start bucking and it would take 15 seconds to get over 10 miles an hour. And it was becoming dangerous for her to drive. All of a sudden, as soon as it got dangerous, my desire of we're getting you a new car went crazy high. Whereas before, let's be real, I may have been blowing it off because I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Right.
It's like, oh, your car's acting up. Let's get into the shop. Let's whatever. But when she's like on the side of the interstate and she's not safe anymore, all of a sudden I go, and we were like literally that next Saturday, we got rid of the car and got her a new one. Because when the pain of this current situation becomes greater than the pain of changing the situation, that's when we execute. This is why some people, it's when they might have a number in their head. They didn't get their shit together until they saw a 3 on the scale, or until their kid goes, "Mommy, why won't you have birthday cake with me?" That's a common one we see a lot. Or when the whatever, they finally saw the picture, they took the group picture and they go, "I can't believe I let myself get that out of shape."
Right.
And we're not putting moral value to any of that, but sometimes if the lowest low isn't, we may have to go lower. I've had people that literally, I'm not sure if any of these were your clients or not, but I've had people where they applied for coaching and they literally say, I guess if my situation's not that bad. A year later, 40 pounds heavier, binge eating disorder later, now they apply for coaching because they're like, I wish I would have done this a year ago because it's really bad now. Right. And what was the case is it had to get really bad before they were willing to do the work, and that desire is there.
Yeah. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, right?
No, not at all.
If that's what it takes, then, that's what it takes. I mean, I would say that, if I were to look back at some of the lowest points in my life, I'd say that that's where, I've been given the opportunity for the greatest amount of success.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I don't mean that in like a judgmental way, but from a data standpoint of just being transparent, it's one of those things. But otherwise, yeah, I would agree with you. For me, I would agree with one of the biggest traits is being willing and doing the work unapologetically and relentlessly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, though, because I'm not trying to take this long on each one of these, but I think this is a really important one, because without the work, nothing else happens. You can strategize all day, you can plan all day, but if you do not put the plan to pavement, nothing happens. But too often I see a lot of people's will to do the work. And when I say work, I'm meaning this could be meditate, journal, work out, track your calories, eat better, whatever the thing is. But their will to work is negotiated based on am I seeing progress?
Right.
Do I feel like it? Is it convenient? Whereas we don't do that for brushing our teeth, going to work, taking care of the kids, feeding the dog, paying bills. But I always see where the problem is. They're willing to do the work if it's attached. If I'm seeing progress, if I'm in the mood, if life is cool, calm, and collected, and I think that's where people get into trouble.
Yeah, and it's also interesting too. That kind of made me think of something where one of the gentlemen that I'm working with right now, the kind of like the big picture goal is not something necessarily that we fully have a grasp on, right? So meaning, for example, we know what we want to do, but why we want to do it, we don't really know yet. And the thing that I told him is just, if you put in the work, if you do all of these things every single day, I promise you, even if you don't know why you're doing them yet, somewhere along the way, you will find that. Because when you do these things, be that something physical, be that something mental, whatever it might be, you will feel better in some way, shape, or form. And then that might be where that sparks that for you. It's like, for example, how many times have we been working with someone where, they could care less about strength training. And then in doing strength training for a long time, they're like, you know what? I really want to be able to flip this big ass tire.
Yes.
I really want to be able to do a pull up or, whatever it might be. So sometimes, for example, guys, if you just put in the work and maybe you don't really know why yet, I promise you nothing bad is ever going to come from doing the work. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. And again, what do you have to lose?
Well, and I think that bleeds into the next one. For me, what's like for me a trait of one of the most successful is willing and able and leaning into the resistance or getting uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Because the reason, if you're in a situation you are not happy with, it's because you stayed in a comfort zone. It's because you did things, let's say, you shouldn't have done for a prolonged period of time. So there's going to be resistance when changing that. And that's with anything. If you if you've crossed your arm, right arm over left, and now you're like, I want to cross my arms the other way, left over right, there's going to be internal resistance because anything that goes against the old way of doing it, old conditioning, is going to have inherent resistance. So when we come into this world, I see too many people who struggle. They're like, oh, this is hard. This sucks. I go, well, yeah. If you've always hid your emotions with food and now we're feeling our emotions, that's not comfortable. If you've always worked out 7 days a week and we're like, yeah, we need to do 3, that's going to feel weird. If you get rid of your glasses and get contacts and you still do this, it's going to be a little bit kind of resistancy. Anytime we change any of this stuff is going to have resistance. But if we don't use resistance as a cue to execute, you're in for a rough ride.
And now, would you go so far as to say, because I always give this, it's kind of silly with people, but I'm like, and I really think that if there is no resistance, you're probably, I don't know if I should say that. You want resistance. Like, for example, if you want to grow your bicep, you could sit here all day and do that. You're not going to really grow your bicep. How do you grow your bicep? You get something heavy and you fight against it, right? That's how your muscle grows. And I think that in a very real sense, that's how we as people grow. We have to have some kind of resistance. If the thing that you are doing is not providing you with the resistance, then again, we probably should circle back to the, doing the work thing. Are you doing the work, and is the work you're doing worthwhile? And if there is no resistance, I don't know. I'd almost say that there's not.
Well, and that's the thing is that's the purpose for discipline. Discipline, it has to be utilized when something that you don't want to do or it's inconvenient or you don't feel like it. It's why smashing a whole pizza is a lot of fun. It takes zero discipline because it's enjoyable. We want to do it, all these things, whatever it may be. Or sitting playing video games all day for someone. There's no discipline that's required because you want to do it. There's a desire there.
Right.
So, but this is why I think it's Jocko Willink that has tagged the line, discipline is freedom. Because if you can discipline yourself in whatever it may be, you're now going to have the freedom somewhere else. If I have the discipline to train for years at a time, I'm going to have the freedom of never having to go to a nursing home. Mm-hmm. If I have the discipline to heal my relationship with food and learn moderation, I have the freedom of eating whatever I want, whenever I want.
Right.
These kind of things. If I have the discipline to hold space for my emotions, I have emotional freedom elsewhere.
Right.
So if you have the discipline and don't cheat in your marriage, you now have freedom, and your wife doesn't have to worry about wherever, whatever, wife, husband doesn't have to worry about you doing stuff. Discipline is always freedom, but it's not in the way everyone thinks.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the resistance piece comes in. Even think about like astronauts. I think the statistic is if someone goes to space, I can't remember how long, if they do not do the resistance exercises, they come back with the bone fragility of an 80-year-old. Is because they don't have the resistance of gravity pushing on our bones. If that's not a testament, I don't know what is. So it's the same thing.
I like that.
Whenever you're going on this journey and you don't feel like it, good. That's a sign for you to lean into the resistance. Because when you lean into the resistance, you're finding your other self. Because your old self is the one that doesn't want you to do that. When there's like the resistance kicks in, what do you think the resistance is? It's the old self. It's the ego. It's the version of you that got you where you're at right now. Well, I don't feel like it. Okay, but like let's put that on trial. You're not happy with how you are. You're not happy with your life. You're not happy with how you look, feel, the whole nine. So we can't just keep doing that. That's why for me, I always say whatever the resistance is the trigger to do the thing.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And then that probably brings us to the next big one, which is not quitting when things get tough, right?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good segue.
I would say that goes hand in hand with what we just talked about right there, is not quitting when it gets tough. And boy, is that such a big one. Boy, is that such a big one. Because I would say that with everything in life, we experience that, right? Be that with our jobs or something like that. Like I'm sure that everyone has experienced this at one point or another whenever you're stuck in traffic going to work or stuck in traffic going back from work. You're like, yep, this is it. I'm going to be quitting. But we don't, right? When things get rough and we're about to say, screw it, we just keep going.
But let's lean into that. Why? When you're in traffic, when someone's in traffic, wants to quit their job, why don't they?
I mean, I would say that's probably when it kind of goes back to the whole, why are we doing it in the first place? It's so that we can, provide for ourselves. It's so that we can provide for our family. It's so that we can have the life that we want. And that's why we don't quit. And I think that that's why it's, just so important to have a really good and compelling reason why we're doing this in the first place. If we didn't need money and everything was just handed to us, then in that moment in traffic, I'd probably phone into the boss and say, hey, ain't worth it. I'm done.
Right. But you have all of the bad things that are going to happen if you quit because your car payment doesn't care. Your mortgage doesn't care. These kind of things. So when people quit, let's say they're not losing the weight they want to lose and they go, I'm going to throw in the towel. We need to go back and think like, well, what's going to happen if I do this? I'm going to go back to the way things were. I'm going to gain more weight and all these things. But the thing that I've utilized this with myself in many areas of my life for a long time now, and I actually stole this from Hermosi. There's a line he always said is, if I do not quit, I cannot lose. Or if I cannot lose if I do not quit. But it actually blows my mind the amount of people who want to quit, where if doing the thing isn't working quite like you wanted it, the one guaranteed way it will never work is by giving up. Giving up never made you lose weight. There's not a single person who's ever said, you know what, fuck all this weight loss stuff, quit and got shredded. That's never happened, right? But we know a lot of people who put plans in place and got all the results possible. So maybe we could go, maybe the plan is wrong, maybe my approach is wrong, maybe there's something I'm missing. But the traits of the most successful people that we've worked with is, I will not quit. Quitting only gives me more suffering, and the old self only wins when that happens.
Yep.
So,
and that's really good right there. The old self wins. Because have I ever kind of told you how I like to view whenever we want to quit and stuff? I like to kind of look at it from like an identity perspective, where whenever you are presented with a situation in which you're ready to throw in the towel, literally what that is, it's a battle between the new identity and the old identity, right? And whenever you push through that, and it's going to be really hard, that's one more victory against the old identity. And all it takes is enough, victories, and eventually you win the war. And that's why I think it's so, so, so important when the times do get tough to just never give up, because the second that you do, then you give your old identity a little bit more of a foothold. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, no one's perfect with any of this. You will always lose some of the battles, right? But if you just keep fighting enough of them, eventually you will win the war.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best way I heard it framed was I was at Kyle Cease's event, and he said, here you are sitting down, and you have your old self or lower self over here, that wants to give in, that wants to follow the old pattern, that wants to quit, give up, whatever the thing is. And then you have your higher self over here, the identity, the highest potential version of you, the God-like you, whatever it may be, the higher self over here. And you're in the middle. And you're just watching these two guys bicker. But then you're the one that has to decide what you do, because there's three of you at all times. There's old you, current you, higher you, and all of them are trying to come through you. So you have to decide which one to do. And so from a strategic standpoint, this is where we have clients lean into the identity framework around, cool, what do you want? Let's say the 30 pounds. Who do you have to become to lose it? That one. Mm-hmm. Well, what would they do? What would the higher self do? Well, would they give up just because it's hard? Well, you want to teach your kids that? They're watching you right now. Right? Is there any logical realm where you get what you want by quitting? Well, no. So it's actually a really simple, not easy, but simple decision. Mm-hmm. Just do what your higher self would do.
Yeah.
And
I think that was another one that we were going to talk about is, becoming uncomfortable, right? And truly embracing that. And I would say in a very real sense that whenever you want to, or not want to, but whenever you're, presented with that situation like you're talking about, where you've got the new identity, old identity, or the old self, new self, there is comfort and familiarity and maybe a strange sense of safety, but a sense of safety with the old, because that's what you know. And if you are willing to be uncomfortable, I think that's when you are able to kind of more so gravitate towards that new self, because it's a new territory, right?
Yeah, the mind craves what's most familiar, even if it means suffering.
Yeah.
Because suffering, for a lot of you that are listening, is familiar. Suffering is what home felt like. Suffering is like, I can do good in suffering. I understand what to expect. I don't get my hopes high, whatever it may be. So the brain is all about self-preservation. Your heart, this is where people get bent out of shape or messed up. The brain wants self-preservation. Your heart wants happiness. Mm-hmm. That makes it really difficult.
Right.
Because the happiness involves you growing, expanding, stepping into the unknown, pursuing these higher level things. The brain goes, we might get hurt. That proverbial stove might be hot. So let's just not touch it. But your heart's like, no, I feel compelled to do that. And this is the tug of war most people are stuck in.
Right.
This is another Kyle thing that it's helped me so much. And this is every area of our life. Anytime we're expanding, anytime we are at a crossroads and we are trying to make the better decision that goes against the old self, the mind can only measure what we will lose. It cannot measure what we'll gain. That has helped me in so many areas of my life, because when you are expanding and doing it, stepping into this unknown, stepping into this higher self, all your egoic brain does is go, no, it only measures what you'll lose. Like sign up for coaching. The best thing someone could ever do that struggles is sign up for coaching. You and I have committed our last years of our lives to helping people in coaching, and we know what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. But their pattern, their egoic brain doesn't. All they see, what kind of money am I losing? What kind of connection am I losing? What kind of old life am I giving up?
Right.
But they can't fathom and measure what's on the other side when they have total freedom, love the way they look, love the way they feel, stop the generational diet culture trauma going on in their life, lived an extra 10 years, had experiences with their kids they never thought they would ever have. The mind can't measure that stuff. It only measures how much does it cost, how much money am I losing, how much time am I having to give up to do check-ins and to work out. But that's how the egoic brain works. Think about guys, Grant just opened up a gym. Mm-hmm. Incredible, right? Full story circle we'll probably talk about later. That was the gym we met in, where he started working with me. It was incredible. Long story, we'll get into it. But think about it. When you did that, the mind only can measure what you lose. How much money am I spending? Right. How much time am I giving up for my family? All these other things, but it's not. And even if in the beginning trenches of it, there's still a lot of that. It never goes away. But there's a lot that you're like, I never could have seen this coming. I never would have seen the community rally around me. I never would have seen this impact I'm making. I never would have made this, whatever it is. But that's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, with that as well, I mean, that's why it's so important to, really kind of celebrate the little things with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's celebrating the little things and not losing sight of all of the small things every single day. Because it's very easy, especially like, with that, to look at it and say, okay, well, I'm not here yet, or I haven't made, this amount, or it's not doing this, it's not bringing in, X amount of people per month, or whatever it might be. But then it's, whenever you focus and fixate on that, then you forget all the little things where it's like, we have seen this growth. We have seen, this change in culture. We have seen, a huge uptick in word of mouth, which means we're doing something right by the community and all of these beautiful things. And a lot of, what helps me a lot with that, and I would say that that's also a very, good trait that we see in a lot of, successful clients, is being able to really, really, really appreciate the little things.
Well, again, like I give this example all the time, but like I have all these books behind me. Mm-hmm. It's is there, have you ever been in the middle of a book, especially I'm sure like back in like college where you're like research, like out the ass, where you're like, man, I'll never finish this. This book is 800 pages of studies, and like I'll never get through it. But that massive book is made up of individual pages.
Right.
So as long as, but if every day you're like, this sucks, I'll never get through it, you'll finish the book with resentment. You'll finish the book with suffering. Because it'll never feel like you're making it, ever. It never does. This game is so slow. It's like...
Oh, and I get tripped up on that constantly.
I guarantee it.
We're all just, like, this still isn't where I want to be, or, oh my God, people are still doing this, or, I mean, I get that constantly, and it really does, I don't know if that's just how we are built as people, but a lot of times if we let it, because I think it is a choice, if we let it, the bad will, without a doubt, always overshadow the good. If we let it.
Tony Robbins talks about like the part of our brain that is always like, it's never good enough, I should be further ahead, all that stuff. It's literally part of your self-defense mechanisms in your brain. It's just how it works to keep you alive. So that part may never go away for people, which means we have to be proactive and on the offense about looking for the things. The example that I always give is, my wife may be in the middle of something and she's like, hey, Jared, will you run out to my car and grab my purse? I go, sure. I go out, cannot find that motherfucker anywhere. I flip that car upside down, rip out the mats. Literally, I can't find that purse. Come back in. Yeah, it's not in there, Shelby. And she goes, okay, I'll go look. Front seat.
Right.
And I'm like, how? The only simple answer is I wasn't looking hard enough.
Right.
Literally, I didn't. I'm a dumb boy. Like, I didn't look hard enough. But too often when we're on this game, as you guys that are listening, and you're like, well, I'm not making progress. The amount of people that have said, I'm not making progress, and they look over all the progress is astounding. Yep. This is why one of these traits of the most successful people is they take so much joy in the small things. The fact that they're like, I tied my shoes today, and my stomach wasn't in the way.
Yeah.
One of the beginning ones we get a lot is, I went up the stairs at my job, and I didn't get out of breath this time.
Right.
Like, that should be celebrated just as much as you hit your 80-pound milestone. Here's what I always tell people is, like right now my family is having children, like a contest. But I'm sure like when like your brother like started having the little one, every step you freak out. Mm-hmm. The little baby starts doing this. And they go, oh, look how strong her neck's getting. Oh my gosh. She held her neck up for 5 whole seconds. And then when they finally roll over, she rolled over, call grandma, take a picture. Every I'll be honest, dumb fucking little thing that little skin sack does, that little skin puppy.
It's celebrated.
It's praised. It is like party worthy. Mm-hmm. Like I remember when I was at my brother's house when their youngest walked, every phone was out. Like, oh my gosh, clapping.
Yeah.
And every parent listening to this has done that. And I think it's important. It's great because what's it do? It makes the baby keep doing it because here's more dopamine and all these things. Well, when did that stop for us? Why is it you'll be on this weight loss journey and you don't get that same, the scale didn't move, but like you buttoned your pants that never buttoned.
Yeah.
And instead of going, Grandma, let's take the picture, like instead of celebrating, you go, well, the scale didn't move. And then you act like that didn't happen.
That's probably one of my, so one of the things that I really love about how we have coaching formatted is we try to just capture a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite things whenever we get like check-ins and things like that is people constantly will say things that are just these gigantic wins, but they're just writing it and they don't even recognize that as that's just what they do, right? It's It's not a win or anything like that. And then I'm like, oh my God, look at that. And they're like, wow, whenever you pointed that out, I didn't realize that. And one of the things that I like too is especially, going back. So we save all of the check-ins, and it's going back and looking at the first check-in or the second check-in, like the tone, how they're describing themselves, how they're viewing certain things, and then just the tone shift and how they, are writing things and how they're viewing themselves and all these things. Night and day difference. You would assume that it's from one author and another author, but it's the same person. And no one really recognizes that until you point it out. And that's probably one of my favorite things about coaching people. It's being able to open their eyes to things like that they would otherwise miss.
There's a lot that happens there. There's an identity shift. There's a new level of conditioning. There's a level of ego death. There's a level of all these old things that's part of the internal transformation. Mm-hmm. You can't transform inside and the outside doesn't. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You can absolutely transform on the outside in a much harder way, and the inside doesn't, but then the outside will go back.
So how would you say, because I know looking at that, whenever I continuously open people's eyes to that, eventually they are able to do that themselves. And my question for you is, for the people that are maybe not working with a coach or something like that, how do they do that themselves? Because that's tricky. I don't even know if I have an answer to that, to be honest with you.
I mean, you don't know what you don't know. That's the hard part. You don't know what you don't know. You cannot escape a jail you don't know you're trapped in. But this is also why you and I teach the way we do in coaching and in the collective and on platforms like this, is because one of my favorite things to do, I don't think I've ever said this before, is one of my favorite things to do is I love shifting perspective, because you can never unsee something.
Right.
For example, if you're like a movie buff, right, or if you're you're watching some season on Netflix and some asshole posts online the spoiler, and they're and they you can't, right now, at the time of recording, everyone's freaking out about the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Mm-hmm. But if I haven't seen it yet, I want to. I hear it's great. But if you go, oh yeah, Terry Learn, I saw it last night, and here's what happened at the end, I would be like, well, fuck, right? Because I can't unsee it. You can use that to your advantage. If you lean into this is why coaching is so important. This is why Grant and I coach. This is why we have our coaching group. This is why we do things like this, is because you don't know what you don't know. That's the hard part. So you can't have perspective shifts around these things. It's think about having a child. Why doesn't a fourth grader know calculus? They just don't.
Right.
No one's taught them yet. It's not appropriate yet. So part of this stuff is being receptive and open, because we could also say the same thing to someone, but if they're not ready to receive it, they're not ready to receive it. If I'm closed off, it doesn't matter. I could have the cure to cancer, and I'm going to be I'll reject it. Or that person will reject it. But I think to answer your question on how does someone, whether in coaching or that's not in a coaching setup, do this, is you have to be, I think there's a level of what you look for, you find. If I said, hey, and if I did an event, and I think I told the story on the collective call last night where I said, hey, if I had if I was doing a live event and 100 people was in here, and I had 7 envelopes in this room, they're in plain sight and they have $1,000 in them each, all of a sudden you would be looking for a little piece sticking out here, thing underneath your chair, because you're aware something's there. You don't know necessarily what it exactly looks like, but you know it's there, so you're looking for it.
Right.
This is why a lot of people will say, Jared, I stumbled across your content and I immediately knew this is what I needed, because they were people say, Jared, I've been looking for this. I didn't know what it was. I knew there was something deeper going on. I knew it wasn't just eat less, move more. I knew something was there, and I've been looking for this, but I didn't know what I was looking for. Then all of a sudden the For You page said, here's this page or this video or whatever. So I think that's it. But it's also why the idea is to get as close to the people that can shift that perspective, people like us. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you can sign up for coaching, great. If you can sign up for the collective, great. But if those aren't the thing, get in proximity. One of the things that I do is if there's someone I want to work with and I can't work with them, I buy their book and I act like I'm working with them, right? I join a mentorship. I join their coaching group. Literally, I want to work with, case in point, I would love to be personally mentored by Ed Milet. Mm-hmm. But I don't have I don't even know what he charges. Probably $1 million a year. Right. I'm not gonna. So you know what I did? I joined his coaching group. Mm-hmm. I joined the RT Syndicate. So I pay several $100s a month to have group access to him, and it changed my life. It's worked. It all does the stuff. I'll go to the events he has. and things like that because I just want to get as close to it as I can. And now I'm one connection away. My mentor is buddies with Ed now, right? So like you never know how that happens. We have people do the same thing here. Someone wants to work one-on-one with us. Let's say it's not available. They'll join the collective. They'll join our coaching group. Let's say they can't do that. They'll listen to this podcast 7 times. They'll DM us on Instagram, whatever. So I think that's my thoughts on that, at least.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so I think kind of like the to tie that back in with like the trait that would kind of explain would probably be, what would you say, like an openness, I guess?
Yeah, probably a level of openness and receptivity.
Like being open. And then it's awesome how all these segue to one another. And then so I would say another really good trait is, self-awareness, right? Like being open is fantastic, but if you're not self-aware enough to know what you need to be open to and things like that, then, I mean, you're never going to get anywhere with that.
And I would piggyback on that, not just self-awareness, where you're aware of yourself, your tendencies, your proclivities, your triggers, your patterns, but then you're also willing to do something with that information. Mm-hmm. For example, I've said it a couple times now, you cannot escape a jail you don't know you're trapped in. And this is why I think self-awareness as a whole is the number one skill set. I would argue it's the number one because without being aware, you can't fix things. If you're not aware how much you're eating, you can't compensate. That's all calorie tracking is makes you aware. Journaling makes you aware around your emotions. Meditating and sitting with yourself makes you aware around your patterns and triggers, right? Like everything is about bringing a level of awareness so we can do something with that information as data.
Yeah. Because once you've got that awareness and once you've seen that jail cell, then again, it's on you to get yourself out of that. Mm-hmm. It's on you to take action. It's on you to do the things necessary to get out of there.
Yeah. Another one along these lines that came up for me that we don't have listed that I think is a fantastic trait for some of the most successful clients is resourceful.
Yeah.
Not just resourceful, like I've had people like literally know coaching is the thing that'll change their life and they get resourceful and find a way to make the money happen. I got a guy right now who literally is in the middle of moving across country, actually about an hour from here. I'm going to go meet up with him once they settle in.
Oh, really?
I'm so excited. Cool. I'm pumped. I won't say his name in case he doesn't want me to do that here, but it's up north a little bit, about an hour. Sweet. Yeah, I'm going to go visit him. But I have several people he's like picking up extra what do you call it? Like Uber Eats or DoorDash stuff.
Was literally just
literally to help pay for coaching because he knows this will change his life. Mm-hmm. He literally said, if I don't do this, I'm going to die early. Fuck. Okay, let's make this happen. But not just resourceful financially, because I know not everyone, like some people will be like, I can't do that. And I get it, I'm not saying that. But resourceful as a whole. Like so many people will go, oh, I don't know how many calories in this, fuck it. Well, I'm going to find out. I'm going to compare this to something at another restaurant, or I'm going to make an educated guess, or I don't know how many calories are in this burger, but there's probably this much in the bun, this much in the mayonnaise, this much in the beef patty. Okay, we'll just say it's about this. Yeah. Or being resourceful on, like I had a client of mine message me the other day, and she goes, oh, well, I was going to walk today, but I can't. I'm going to move it to tomorrow. That by itself is incredible. It's resourceful, is optimistic, and on the offense for your goals. Mm-hmm. And I think too many people, though, going back to we get what we look for, they almost look for obstacles. So they can go, nope, I can't do it. I can't go, there was a rainy day. I can't eat my calorie deficit. Like, come on, you know what I mean? Or things like that versus it's all out there. If we get what we look for. If you find ways to be resourceful, they are right there. But a lot of it comes down to, are we actually looking for those things? Right.
And I think that, one of the best resources is always going to be people, right? Mm-hmm. Without a doubt, I think it's always going to be people. And that made me think of like so many different things with like the gym. Like there's this one person that, just they work really hard. They do all those things, but, just getting that extra little bit of money for, the gym, they just don't have the time or ability to do that. So what did they do? They came up to me and they were like, hey, what is it that I can do to do this? Do you need me to take out the trash? Can I, sweep the floors? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I think that, and of course with that, I always say yes. Like I just want people to succeed and do all these things. But you don't see that a lot, right? And I think that that's where that person has that desire in this case to improve themselves at such a level that they are willing to, again, be resourceful and do things that, anyone can come up to me and ask that. And I would be more than happy to say,
same thing here. Look, dude, I think I sent you the screenshot the other day. I've had this happen. This isn't just one situation thing. I've had people who really, really need our help, and just because of life, can't afford it. So I go, okay, cool. Here's what we can do to make it happen. I literally had someone the other day that I said, hey, they had some unexpected life. They were in the middle of my coaching. It's our coaching group, the Dieting from the Inside Out Collective, and they're in the middle of it, loving it. But a massive medical bill got hit, and they need to take a break for a while, and which I totally respect. But I said, hey, look, because they were talking about how much it's helped them and changed their life, and I said, hey, I tell you what, if you make me just like a little selfie testimonial, I'll let you stay in. I'll give you a whole nother month for free. Just give me a testimonial. That way, we'll keep this rolling. And they declined.
Yeah.
Or I've had people win full ride coaching scholarships, 6 months of coaching for free. Mm-hmm. And like week one, they're like, yeah, I don't think I want this anymore.
Yeah. I've had that happen a few times.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas again, we're not being like shameful or anything like that, but I'm trying to impress upon you guys that, you may have golden opportunities in front of you, and you may not, and because you're not looking for them, or some people reject them. And here's the thing: no judgment, no hate, no shame. That's totally fine. If something is not a priority, that's okay. Again, we can't. Neither one of us can force that. But it's one of those things. There's going to be two levels of people listening. Someone's going to go, well, I get it. They didn't want it, or some people's going to go, why didn't that happen to me? I would have taken it. I'll send you a video. I'll do whatever the fuck you want. Like, whatever. But the thing is, it's why like one of the greatest things is resourcefulness. If you are not resourceful, again, this doesn't have these are just a couple financial examples, but resourceful as a whole, like looking at your schedule, deciding when to go to the gym, finding where journaling and other habits and being mindful come into your day that you can plan, how to still manage being a mom and a wife and the cook and the run around with all your kids and still prioritize yourself. Right. It's going to require for you to be resourceful, but if you play the victim all the time, you'll never be resourceful.
Right. Well, and I think a big part of coaching too is, having someone that you are accountable to, right? And if you are resourceful, you can find that accountability buddy, be that your, spouse, be that a friend, be that a colleague, whatever it might be. Being resourceful. Yeah, I've never really I've never either. In terms of like ranking those, that actually might be
so high. Yeah, and it just hit me. It literally we're talking. I go resourceful. We have to talk about it. I cannot believe how much time is flying by. We're almost at an hour already.
Are we really?
Yeah. So I know So Grant and I wrote down this giant list just to jam on. So let's just do this. Let's pick, and whether it's on the list or not, let's each pick one more. Because here's the thing: we could do part 3, part 4, part 5. Like, so many of this. So. Whether, Grant, you want to go off the list or not, what would you say is one more trait of the most successful clients that these beautiful people could implement? And then I'll do one myself.
I mean, I would say the one that we did not speak about, and I would say is probably, again, top maybe 3, 4 or something like that, would probably be being able to release outcome. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that.
So basically, guys, what that means is being able to release the outcome. So we all have these big goals and things like that we're striving for, but we don't want to just, marry ourselves to that, right? It's being able to say, okay, even if I'm not here yet, I can still do this. Even if I'm not there yet, I can still do this and show up for myself in all these different ways. So like, for example, a lot of people get bogged down where they're like, yeah, I want to lose, 50 pounds. And then that's their brick wall. That's their obstacle. That's their barrier. They can't, if they're not at that 50-pound mark, then all else is for nothing. But whenever you can, for example, let go of the fact that, we're striving for 50 pounds down, then you can start to make all these other improvements in all these other areas.
Yeah, I think too often, and this is actually going to segue into mine, when we are too tied to an outcome, we miss everything in between because that outcome may be less than what it could have been. Like, to give an example, what if someone's goal was to make $100 this weekend and they miss out on a $500 opportunity? Because they're like, no, I have to make my $100, but they miss out on like, hey, help me and I'll pay you an extra $500.
Right.
It's the same thing here. I've seen people who are transforming in every way they want. The scale didn't move. So they're like, no, I want to lose 30 pounds.
Right.
But they're missing the transformation that would have caused them to sabotage themselves. So I think releasing from outcome is not just it's important from that side of things, but it also changes your energy. Mind you, your energy dictates your subconscious actions and what you attract into your life and all these things. When you are in a state of chasing and almost tied to an outcome, when you become desperate, people do crazy shit when they're desperate, right? If this is my outcome and I'm tied to it, and I'm like, I have to lose weight by this amount of time, this timeline, this fashion with these parameters, it's almost like something else goes, that's cute.
Yeah. And you rob yourself of so much growth, right? Whenever you are fixated on one singular thing, you rob yourself of so much growth.
Yeah. Because on this line, mine is to be flexible in the how. Now, I think this may be even arguably a subset of release from outcome, but it's almost release of any attachment.
Right.
I think we could both consolidate this to release of an attachment. This is my outcome. I want to weigh this. Or in my case with the flexibility in the how is the attachment of here's how I should do it. I should lose this much weight by this time, or I should lose it in this order. But I see way too many people, for example, they'll be losing weight everywhere but the one spot they want, and then they convince themselves that they aren't making progress at all, when in reality they are making so many great changes. The amount of people I've seen unintentionally cause suffering on themselves who their relationship with food is better, they quit binge eating, their kids are following their steps now, they're strong, they feel better, they're confident, and their clothes are fitting better, but because that fucking scale didn't move, they don't see any of it. It's because we're attached. We have to release attachment.
Right.
You know, I mean, this is why attachment and it actually, like when you're too attached to something, you chase it. But think about the energy of chasing something. You're almost energetically declaring, I don't have that. It's like the car salesman that wants to sell you. Actually, to be honest with you, I bought a car over the weekend. We went to the car place we went to. Their salesmen don't make commission. There's no attachment. Literally zero. Because they don't make any. He gets paid the same whether I buy the car or not. You want to talk about how easy it was to buy a car? Because there was no attachment.
That's actually a really good example of that.
Things like that, you know. So I think releasing all forms of attachment. I'm in a season of my life where it's becoming abundantly clear I have to let go of every attachment I have, whether it be in literally every area. Like I was at that event with Kyle Cease in LA a month ago, and the whole thing was letting go and surrendering. Because I'll put it this way, you don't know best.
Right.
I think we all have to realize we don't know best. Our minuscule brains don't see the whole picture, and we have a tendency to be egoically biased. So when we have attachments to here's how I should lose weight, here's how I should go about this, it should be done by this amount of time, that is almost like a disgrace to what could be happening right now. So we have to surrender and let go of attachment.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that.
I'm in the middle of reading also right now David Hawkins' book called Letting Go, and it's like he passed away in 2012, but he's a psychiatrist and talks about this stuff. So
I don't know if I know him or not.
He got some gangster books. The other one up here is Power versus Force is another one. Basically, all the hyper intelligent people that I study love David Hawkins, so I go, look, I should probably start studying David. So,
and it has not disappointed yet.
No,
good.
No,
good.
So I guess he even came out with what they call the Hawkins scale. Like this scale of like energy and emotional states and vibrational frequency and all this stuff. And he's like, if everyone just raised collectively, if the collective of humans raised it by 200, war would stop and like every disease would go away. Like that kind of stuff. It's wild. So, man, dude, this has been so good. I can't believe an hour's almost flew by. So talk about what's been new in Grant's life. I want to. We haven't talked publicly about the gym stuff because if anyone's ever in Martinsville, Indiana, y'all should stop fucking by. So
this has definitely been a very unique chapter in my life. It's something that I don't think people appreciate. Like, I don't necessarily know. Like, I always appreciated everything that you did on like the back end business side of things, but you don't really understand that until you do it. And dear God Almighty, like you want to talk about, just breathing every second. There's always something to be done. There's always something to do. Very stressful and chaotic time in my life, but damn, has it been rewarding.
That's awesome.
Super rewarding.
I was on a mentorship call, that coaching group I'm part of, RT Syndicate. Ed Milet was doing a call, and he literally said, as entrepreneurs and higher level people, he says, the higher level entrepreneurs, or if he said in the world of entrepreneurship, he goes, you don't have 2 good days in a row. If you get one good day, he goes, and Ed, mind you, Ed's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He just bought an island, cash.
Goals right there.
Right. He said, and he goes, I don't think a day goes by where I don't have something bad happen, whether it be this account had this happen, or this tax issue's coming up, or this legal thing's happening, or these sales are down, or whatever. He goes, so we have to get, he goes, entrepreneurship expectations, he goes, don't expect 2 good days in a row.
Right.
He goes, if you go 2, 3, 4, 5 good days in a row, something's wrong. You aren't seeing something. I thought about, like, how's that apply here? Like fat loss. Now, I don't think it's quite the same, but I think there's also a level of expectation of, like, there's always going to be something. Nothing goes, no, your plan doesn't go perfect. There's always going to be a dinner. There's always going to be a miscalculation. There's always going to be a highway, and there's always going to be a whatever, but everyone has an expectation of it's going to be smooth as fuck.
Right.
So,
and it never is.
No.
Well, and I mean, I think that's such a really, I mean, because boy, is that true in business. Like,
oh my gosh,
nothing goes right. Nothing goes right. Nothing goes how you planned. Well, I shouldn't say that. Very rarely does anything ever go right or go as planned. And it, I don't want to say it always ends up working, but I think that, again, if you've just got that relentless pursuit of doing the stuff over and over and over again, I think that good things will happen. And, it's really special just being able to do all these things and create something. And that's why it's so important to, like, really fixate on, everything that you can, and not just, again, it's releasing the outcome. It's, not getting attached to, okay, we need to be bringing in X amount, per year. If I did that, then I lose sight of the fact that, we are creating an amazing community, the culture that we've established in a very short amount of time, taking that gym, because this isn't a gym from the ground up. This is a long-standing, pre-existing gym, and I don't want to talk poorly on it, but there was some baggage that came with it. There was some baggage that came with it, and just being able to do the work and make the shift that we have in such a short amount of time,
it's crazy.
Has been really fun.
Yeah, it's been crazy watching. I've been enjoying watching from the sidelines, and you're doing great. Like, and I don't have any experience in a brick and mortar like that. Like, I built a personal training business, like we both know, but that's different. It's different than, like, I have to pay the rent, I have to pay the lights, I have to staff it. Like, that's a whole different world. So it is cool though, guys. Like, if you follow Grant on, like, they should actually probably follow up. I will put the Facebook link for the because I know you're not as active on Instagram
yet. So we've got big changes coming here soon, because, I can say that we're rebranding. So we're about, like, one of the things we have, so we're coming up on our year. So September will be our 1 year mark, and to kind of celebrate just how much we have evolved and grown as a community, I want to give us a new name that represents who we are now. So we've got some cool stuff coming with that. So we'll have a lot of different social media platforms, but I can't release them yet because they've got the new name, and I don't want to.
Well, the cool thing is, whenever we have them, they will go into the description on this episode. I'll just send them to me, and that way we can send some of these people that way. But that's awesome. The other thing that is going on right now, and I did not time this intentionally, so because Grant is here with me when we're talking about this, and I did not time this on purpose. I just thought about this when I was, like, right before we started recording, is Grant and I run what's called the Dieting from the Inside Out Collective. So for you, it's literally like our coaching group, where for the longest time, I think I've talked about this a little bit here and there, and I've been talking about it more on social and stuff. But for the last 13 years, I've scaled one-on-one coaching pretty exclusively. I've done, like, challenges here and there, like a course here and there, but, like, it's always been one-on-one coaching. And I've felt this calling inside of me to basically change. It's when I change the directions of the business, and it's when I really feel like this is the next big thing. And for me, and that's why I wanted Grant to be part of this with me. So whereas if you guys are, let me take a step back. When it comes to this stuff, one-on-one coaching just isn't the most accessible, right? We both know we built our careers off one-on-one coaching. Literally, I've been doing one-on-one coaching since before I was a professional. Literally before, I've been coaching for 13 years. Then when I was 16 years old, I was coaching at the martial arts studio, teaching private lessons. Like, all I know is teaching and coaching. Well, the problem is there's only so much Jared or so much Grant, as well as one-on-one coaching is just not as accessible to everyone. So that's when I said, you know what, I want to do a coaching group, because I've had so much success in my life with actual coaching groups like the RT Syndicate that I was telling you about, and different things like that. But I wanted to build this one differently. So I knew I wanted Grant to be part of this with me. And I we literally built this whole thing differently than a lot of other coaching groups. We'll get I'll leave a link for all the details if you're interested below. But even like after this after this podcast, we're going to even do more stuff, like look over some surveys of feedback from our members and some other changes that we're wanting to make and whatnot. But if you resonated with a lot of the content we're talking about and you want to get this kind of help where you may not have some of these character traits, you don't know how to have that perspective opened, that could be the blockage that you are struggling with or what have you, or you don't have the tactics, you don't have the strategy, you feel like you're missing the community, you feel like you don't have access to the support because one-on-one coaching just may not be in the cards or whatever. I really think the Dieting from the Inside Out Collective could be a good fit for you. What I'll do is I'll leave a link below, because the cool thing this week at the time of recording this, when this will come out, we're actually opening enrollment again. Because as of right, the way we're running right now, the enrollment is not open 24/7 all the time. We do it in little cohorts. Like we open it for like a few days at a time and we close it, and then we'll open it back again and these kind of things. So we're actually getting ready to open enrollment again. Which I'm really excited about. So if you want to look at it to see if it feels right for you, if it would be the right fit, I'll leave a link in the description. That way you guys can check it out. But I was actually going to ask you this. I didn't tell you this before this. So since we've been, the collective is brand new. Like it's been about maybe 6-ish weeks in. For you, I want us both to talk about this. What has been some of your favorite parts of helping run the collective? Because it's a whole different vibe than one-on-one coaching.
Right. Now, I would say that, well, and I mean, honestly, it kind of the exact same feel for the gym, right? I think that there is something so special about being able to kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Craft the culture to what you want, right? Like seeing where it was from like week 1 to where it is now, like people are posting in there, they're engaging with one another, they're uplifting one another, posting wins, helping each other. And it's just a cool thing to be a part of. So now, what was the question? What is my favorite part so far?
Yeah, but what's been some of your highlights? One of some of your favorite things about the collective and that what we've been doing inside there?
Honestly, I think one of my favorite things is being able to help that amount of people at the same time. Because like if you were to think about that from like one-on-one, I literally could not do that with like that many one-on-one. Like I could not do that, but it's being able to like find a way to bring that to the masses and being able to help more people. Because I think that that's, you know, at the end of the day, why, I mean, I guess I'm speaking for all coaches out there, but I'd hope that most coaches out there, the whole reason why they get into this is to help people. And being able to help so many people is so rewarding, and I love it. It's one of those things where like, you know how like, you know, when someone's kind of like got that energy and then you feed off that. So it's kind of like that where, you know, you just have that great energy in there and it's, you know, you're helping all these people and then that gives you the energy and then you want to go more. And it's just an awesome thing.
And it's in such a sustainable way. It's affordable. It's in a fashion that like that it doesn't take the participants all this time and everything like that. You can come in, use what you need. You don't have to use everything. Like you can use what you need and take what you need and run with it. Because I remember when I originally came out with this concept, I wanted it where people could stay for a long time because the magic is around the campfire. Right. Like it's my favorite analogy, whereas you're in the campfire in the wilderness, you're warm and safe around the campfire. You go wander into the wilderness, you get eaten by a jaguar. But too often in one-on-one coaching, because of the dynamic of it, it's a double-edged sword where people will do it so intensely and then leave. And then they go back to their normal lives. And then old habits start to set in. And that's one of the hardest parts is because our environment has more to do with who we are than our heredity. So having the collective, I think, really helps fill that gap. One of my favorite parts has been, I actually almost in the beginning didn't call, I don't think I've told you this. I actually almost didn't call the Dieting from the Inside Out Collective. I almost called it like the self-coaching collective. Because one of my favorite things is because of the nature of this, we're having to teach people kind of how to coach themselves. Right? Because in one-on-one coaching, we lay out every step, every single thing. They don't think at all. So it's actually kind of forced me to level up myself, and I know you the same, when it comes to, like, if I have one person in front of me, it's the easiest thing to go, start this, stop this, don't do this. But when we have a multiple amount of people in this, in all the different walks of life, and we're building frameworks and resources and trainings and help and all this stuff, we have to change our communication. We have to change, like, how can they apply this? So it's less tell you what to do and more teach you how to think. But also it goes back to not just giving someone a fish, but teaching them how to fish.
Right.
So the changes that are being made in these amazing people are transcending more than just fat loss. Now it's literally forcing them to get on the expedited course of self-awareness, raising your energy, changing your life, and all these things. So that's been my favorite part.
Yeah. No, and I love that because, like, I mean, like, just for example, like a very small part of this is like, you know, calories and whatnot. And, you know, we kind of built something to explain, you know, how you calculate that. And I am a very firm believer, at least for me personally, if I am not doing something myself, it's not going to stick. So it's really nice because, you know, basically what this is doing is it's giving you the opportunity to do it on your own, but you're not on your own because I can go in and say, hey, I see how you did that, but let me show you where you went wrong. Or, hey, awesome attempt at, you know, trying to establish that deficit calories, but let me show you, you know, a better approach to that. So it's really nice because you really get to learn in that way. And at least for me personally, that's the only way I can learn is by actually doing and trying and thinking on my own. And I mean, it really is kind of just like almost like a, you know, student professor type of thing where a lot of it is, you know, taking the material and then you've got someone that you can always, you know, lean on and get that help from. So I would say that that's my favorite part. It's how we go about it.
Yeah. I think though also like, because again, the one of my other biggest things with the collective is I wanted and this is what I actually think we are some of the best at, and especially feedback from the members, is to make it so accessible.
Yeah.
When someone has a question, we have it. When someone has an issue they're struggling with, we've got it. They can, whether they come to the calls and do it, or they can message us privately. A lot of coaching groups don't have that.
Right.
Because that was my thing is I stereotypically with looking out at what's out there, I don't love all coaching groups. I don't like this thing about it, this thing about it, this thing about it. So that's why when I sat down, I go, here's what I think that we should build. I filled all those holes in that bucket, and now the bucket holds water. So it's dope. So
super excited for it. So hopefully we see you guys there.
Yeah, for sure. I'll leave a link below with all the details. And if you watch this as soon as this podcast launches, you can actually sign up for the collective. If you're watching this like 5 weeks from now, it may be on the wait list. But either way, I'll leave an accurate link. That way, if you do want to get on a wait list, that'll be there as well. So cool, dude. Well, I appreciate you doing this. This hour and 10 minutes just flew the fuck by and stuff. So awesome, guys. Well, we will talk to you next time.
Take care.